Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Tarika. All eyes global-wide are trained on the humanitarian crisis in the north of Sri Lanka. Tens of thousands of civilians remain trapped in a small sliver of land in an unforgiving terrorist grip. While members of the international community have been forefront in supplying aid in the forms of food, medical supplies and funding, they have also been increasingly vocal in their requests for a ceasefire in aid of the civilians. Whereas the aid has been welcome, the international community's continuing calls to take this action have not been looked upon as favorably. Foreign ministers of France and Britain, Dr. Bernard Kouchner and David Miliband, were in Sri Lanka recently to, in their own words, make in person a case for the humanitarian relief that the UN, the EU and the G8 have called for. Our first story this week follows their progress. In their own words, Foreign Ministers Dr. Bernard Kouchner and David Miliband came to Sri Lanka to discuss the controversial ceasefire in aid of the civilians trapped in the north. Following a lengthy discussion, the foreign ministers were graciously acknowledged by Sri Lanka's Minister of Foreign Affairs during a media conference on the morning of their arrival.
Friends in the media, today is an important day in terms of our international relations and the presence of two distinguished foreign ministers in the world who are here with us at the invitation, at my invitation. The purpose of the visit is well known. We are sharing our efforts in the north, our humanitarian mission that has registered quite a progress and a success, and areas that we could jointly work for the future.
Both envoys remained firm in their commitment to bringing about some sort of halt in the fighting in order to protect the trapped civilians.
But those who are remaining there, how many of them? 20,000, 50,000, said some NGOs? We don't know. And we are highly preoccupied by this situation, and we offer to our friend not only the field hospital, not only the money coming from UK, but we offer them to leave free the access. Access for UN people, access for ICRC, access for NGOs, access for the medical teams. So we'll visit the zone, we'll be able to see the reality, part of the reality with my good friend David, and we'll report to you after the visit.
No one in the international community has been calling for a ceasefire or a stop to the fighting to save Prabhakaran. The calls have come because of an overwhelming concern with the needs of civilians and with the need for long-term peace in Sri Lanka. As the G8 foreign ministers said unanimously, now is the time for the fighting to stop. There is no question that the military advance of the government forces over the last 6 months has been striking. But winning the peace is as vital as winning the war. And that is why the needs of civilians have been at the heart of our discussions today.
Despite Miliband's clarification that the ceasefire was not a means of aiding the LTTE's struggle, his suggestion in particular to stop all military operations was not looked upon kindly, especially by some sections of the government itself. On the same day of the foreign minister's arrival, supporters of the Jathika Hela Urumaya party flocked outside the British High Commission protesting against Miliband's very presence in the country.
We would like to tell Mr. Miliband that he has come on a mission impossible. We will never accept your offer or your suggestion. Please get the hell out of this country and let the Sri Lankans rule the country on the mandate that has been given to His Excellency the President.
This general feeling of hostility towards the international community at this time seems to be fueled by the opinion that external help is not needed to solve an internal problem. Especially given that the government's military advancement has been so successful, a ceasefire at this late stage is looked upon by some as being suspiciously more in support of terrorism than the humanitarian situation.
මේ සාමයක් ඇති කිරීමට ක්‍රියා කරන වෙලාවේ බටහිර රටවල් විශේෂයෙන් ඇමරිකාව, එංගලන්තය, නෝර්වේ, ස්වීඩන් වගේ රටවල් අපට එක්තරා ප්‍රමාණයක තර්ජනයක් කරනවා. අපි අපේ රට ස්වාධීන ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී නිවහල් නිදහස් රටක් බව ඒ රාජ්‍ය දැනගන්නවා. ඇයි තියෙන අවශ්‍යතාවය මේ තරම් මිනිස් ඝාතනයක් සිද්ධ කරපු මුළු ජනතාවටම එපා වෙලා ඉන්න වේලුපිල්ලේ පිරබහන් ආරක්ෂා කරගන්න තියෙන අවශ්‍යතාවය කුමක්ද?
Whether in response to continued pressure from the international community or not, the government recently decided to cease all combat operations utilizing heavy weaponry and instead focus on the rescue of civilians from the no-fire zone. In a press conference on the same day as the envoy's visit to Sri Lanka, the media were given the reasons for the decision.
The government, taking into consideration the practical ground realities, there was a situation for the last 2-3 weeks. We have not used, and it was not practical for use to use heavy artillery, because they were restricted to a area of, by that time, about 8 kilometer stretch. Now, that's the time that the government took the decision not to use heavy weaponry, because it doesn't serve the purpose in the first place, and it is not practical. Then also the airstrikes. It came to, the announcement came on Monday. But it had been the practice because our primary target was to rescue the innocent civilians. And that was our primary target. And as you know, we achieved it.
During their visit, the two foreign ministers met with the president and other officials and also visited the IDP camps in Vaunia to view the prevailing humanitarian situation for themselves as they had requested.
Of course, they receive food, Supply, the World Food Programme, and in addition, they have a little garden and if you're asking them, and you certainly did, they want to come back home. They want to come back to their villages, and I hope that it will be done in some few months. So this is not perfect at all, being a displaced person.
Their joint report about their experience acknowledges the government's decision to conclude heavy military operations, as well as their efforts to provide assistance and relief, but also strongly warns that the international community's suggestions should not be ignored because theirs are voices that will not be easily silenced.